10:01, and I know time is very important, so I'm going to begin if we're good with that. First of all, I am Maria Mercurio. I'm with the Tallahassee Police Department, and I have been a police officer in Tallahassee here for almost 25 years. And I started my career here at Florida State University Police Department, where I also graduated. So once I graduated from FSU, I got hired, well, I went to the police academy, and then I got hired on with FSU. Did that for 2 years. Then I was like, no, I need to do more than just arrest students and, and unlock doors and all that. So I got hired on with TPD, so I've been at TPD for about 23 and a half years. In my career at Tallahassee Police Department, I've worked patrol, I've worked in investigations, I worked in our sex crimes area investigations, burglaries, property crimes. I've worked in our vice narcotic unit. I've done a lot of undercover work here in Tallahassee over the years. I've bought narcotics on the street. I've posed as a prostitute many, many, many times. I have bought stolen property. So I've done a lot of fun stuff over my career, which you're like, that's fun. Well, it's kind of like being an actress, right? You kind of get to come to work and play a different role. So I've done all those kind of fun things. I was promoted to sergeant, where I was then again, whenever you get promoted or whenever you start, you have to go back to the road, which is just, calls for service. If you call 911 or get an accident, that will come out. So I was back on the road, did that for a couple years. I also was over our bicycle squad, which is our cop squad, which is our community-oriented policing, which we did a lot of community events, but we also did a lot of like narcotics, street level stuff. And then I was promoted to lieutenant, and currently I'm over our community relations unit, which is one of the things that I'm very passionate about. Also our training unit, so we train we have about 400 police officers with the Tallahassee Police Department, so we make sure all of our officers are properly trained in all of our high liabilities, also some other areas of training we must go through. And then I'm also over our special events unit, which covers like all the FSU football games, all the FAMU football games, Springtime Tallahassee, Winterfest, 4th of July, all those fun things that you may go out to where we have parades or we have large scale, lots of people, football games. If we have a really good season, our stadium holds about 80,000 people. So we ensure the safety of all those folks. So I'm pretty busy, but one of my passions is personal safety and prevention. I also teach a women's self-defense course at the Tallahassee Police Department, which I've been doing for about 16 years. So I'm here to talk about prevention, personal safety. We brought a couple pads, so if you want to get some aggression out, I'll let you hit it, and I'll teach you how a proper fist. So, I like to sort of do a quick intro to let you know kind of who's talking to you. And at any time, if you guys have questions or concerns, throw your hand up, just say, hey, Maria, what about this? And I'll be happy to answer them. I'm not saying I know everything, but, my years of being a cop here in Tallahassee, I've come across a lot of different scenarios and circumstances, so I can, try to guide you through whatever your question may be. But I'm also going to let my partner in crime here, Charles, introduce himself.
Thank you, LT. I'm Officer Charles Williams, and I've been with the Tallahassee Police Department for 16 years. Did 10 years on patrol midnights. I was so blessed that God blessed me to be a detective so I could be on day shift. Because midnights, it was tough. It was tough. So when I became a detective, I was over general property. Then I moved to burglary. And then after that, I became an investigator in internal affairs, which was very interesting to see how things go with the department.
The police of the police.
Yes. And my next stop, which is now my current position, is community relations, and this is my lieutenant right here. Now, before I was with TPD, I was actually with the Department of Corrections. I did that for like 5 years, and I did 2 years. I was a probation officer with the Department of Corrections. And now we're here today to teach y'all about safety.
So I like to start first I teach a self-defense class. So that is, most of self-defense is education. People think it's like, okay, I need to learn how to like stand and punch and, be kind of like a Jackie Chan or a martial arts expert, which is not necessarily the case, because if you're doing prevention, prevention is 90% of self-defense education. So you can be a black belt or a jiu-jitsu master or a boxing champion or whatever, but if you can prevent something from happening, then you don't have to be all that. Yeah, it's great if you're, an expert in whatever field, or even if you just know a little bit of personal safety, which can get you out of whatever the situation may be. You still want to follow the guidelines of prevention. And it's simple stuff we've probably all grown up with, most of our lives, but we kind of forget about those things. We forget about that prevention because a lot of us are busy with our lives. It's like, okay, I know most of y'all are retired, but still, you still have everyday life. This is you guys have lots of things. I know it's like, oh, I got to go to jazzercise at 11, or oh no, I got a lunch date with my friend at the here, or my kid is coming at 2:00 to pick me up to go to the mall, or you still have very busy lives. And so when it comes to personal safety, sometimes kind of people push aside the safety because they're like, oh yeah, I kind of get that funny feeling about that person sitting in that car, but I'm sure it's nothing, and we continue to do it. And what I'm talking about with that is trusting your instincts, because we all have instincts. We have those instincts of, we see something and we identify it as something that maybe isn't right, whether it be that person in a parking lot, that the car is running and it's late at night and there's normally no one in that parking lot, so what are they doing there? So those are kind of, the hairs on the back of your neck, or that person standing in the shadow, or, something just not right, where you may go home to your, whether it be your apartment or your, townhouse or whatever the case may be, and the door is cracked open. So those are clues and instinct of like, hey, I hear somebody inside. So we ignore those instincts, and sometimes it's us being nosy, or sometimes it's us just saying, well, I'm sure it's nothing, and then we go and we check it out. So I need you to follow those instincts, and you guys have security here, correct? Yes. So you could call security at 1. 2, you can maybe call a friend. 3, you can call your local law enforcement if maybe even if you're outside the grounds. So these are things that you can do just simply by trusting those instincts and not pushing them away, is recognizing them and actually doing something about it. So there's so many different scenarios when we can talk about like instincts and personal safety, but for me, number one is just trusting that and not brushing it aside. One of the things that's really, really important, again, you don't have to be a martial artist or say that, you're going to defend yourself, and be, black belt or anything. But the number one thing for me is verbals. If you get in an encounter, whether it be on property, or if you're out at Publix, or if you're, out at a park in town or something, and you identify maybe someone coming towards you that you don't recognize, and you get that sense, well, use your verbals. Say, hey, no thanks, or not interested, or say something. I want you to look at that person too, because people tend, if they're not comfortable with somebody or something, they tend to kind of look away. So if if Charles is like the person that makes me a little bit uncomfortable, people tend to do one of these where they're like, okay, if I don't see him, look at him, then he's not there. So I want you to do the opposite. I want you to look at him. I'm not saying you have to be like this, but at least our bad guys pick your victims, all right? So, at least, hey, how you doing? You can, continue to walk. You can even throw up your hand. I throw up my hands too, because it's kind of like a universal sign of like, whoa, get back kind of a deal. So you can, hey, get back. When I'm using my verbals too, depending on the scenario, like if there's people around, what are people going to do if you hear somebody saying, hey, get back, man, all right, just stop where you're at, We're all nosy by nature, so we're probably going to at least, at minimum, turn around and see, hey, what's the disturbance? Why is this person saying that to somebody? Well, it's because, they're coming in my personal space. If you're not comfortable with someone coming towards you, then hopefully you're going to say something. Hey, I'm not comfortable with you coming this close, okay? Or whatever the case may be, but I need you to recognize that that person is there, and 2, also use your verbals, all right? be a good witness too, identify, what he's wearing, maybe how tall he is, he's wearing glasses, whatever the case may be. But verbals are huge, okay? If it comes where they come closer, if they even make contact, if they grab you, very bad, beginning stage of an abduction, okay? A battery, unwanted touch, so criminal in nature, yes. But if someone's grabbing you, typically they're trying to get you from one location to the other, right? So you do this, it's a push-pull. Charles is obviously bigger than me. So, I tend to, if someone does this, I teach this personal safety class, so I want you to respond with one verbals: get back, get away, get off me. I don't need this to do it. Yeah, but I want to be as loud as I can. Get off me, get away, call police, something. Because when I'm saying this, hopefully we have some people that at minimum are hearing this and can call the police, right?
And that's what the bad guy don't want. They don't want attention, because they want to go ahead and do what they want to do, like not being seen, because they don't want to alert anybody that they're there. So
at minimum, using verbals too. I would love for, if someone has already engaged me and they've touched me, that's bad. So I'm going to be punching, kicking, biting, whatever I need to do to get out of that situation. Two, depending on your surroundings, if you're in a parking lot, say if you've come in here and you're the first one here and there's no one else here, and maybe there's an encounter too, things happen even within buildings, businesses, residents, whatever the case may be. So again, it's that paying attention and just knowing that you can do something. I've been a cop for almost 25 years. I know, I'm 5 foot. I say I'm 5'5", but I'm probably 5'4".
On a good day.
Yeah,
and
and a lot of the folks that I deal with are going to be taller than me or bigger than me. And yeah, if Charles and I did an arm wrestling match or a wrestling match, he'd probably win because he's a lot taller than me, he's bigger than me, he's going to be stronger than me. But that doesn't mean I can't defend myself. Yep. All right. So that means I need to pick locations on his body that are going to be beneficial to me. So women in this room, we know one of the areas on a man. So my target area is most of the time going to be a groin. Like if I have somebody, and I've done this even in, when I'm arresting somebody, I have hit someone on the groin. It's not going to kill them, but it's going to get to me a desired reaction where it's going to bide me a little bit of time. They're probably going to cower over a little bit and give me that 5, 10, 20 seconds, whatever. If I get a really good one, it's going to give you that time to be able to run, at least get your phone out, call 911, and do that. So target location, if we have made that decision, where we're at the point where we need to strike somebody, is groin. Also, face and eyes. Throat are great locations too. So if we can get to one of those locations, great. And when we talk about eyes, like I'm talking like eyeballs. Like you can take your thumb or your even one of your index fingers. He has glasses. I can literally just push those glasses off and gouge. We call it an eye gouge. But again, it's you need to do what you need to do to get out of that situation. Correct? Any questions about? And we will. I brought a couple pads so. Later on, if you want to hit something, I'll show you a proper fist.
Just don't hit me in the groin.
Yeah, well, yeah. We'll see, baby. Yes, question.
One of the things that I read, if you're being attacked, is just to fall on the floor so they can't drag you away. Is that a good thing?
I get that a lot, actually, and it is an option. One thing about personal safety or self-defense or any of that is there's no right answer because there's so many different scenarios or things that happen. I can't say, yes, if this happens to you, fall on the ground and be like a sack of potatoes and that will get you out of the situation. It may, and it's just another option, and I like that too because sometimes we have people that may have a little bit of mobility issues. We may not be able to run as fast as we could 10 years ago or 20 years ago, or we may have a walker or a cane, which is fine. You can use those as personal weapons. So yeah, the answer could be potentially, depending on the circumstances, if you just really just lower your body, you'll end up on the ground. But, depending on the goal of what your attacker is, as women, a lot of times when you get one of these, you're coming with me. A lot of times you're going to have some sort of assault is the goal. But if they're, grabbing at your purse and saying, give me your purse, I don't want you to hold on to it and be a sack of potatoes, because their goal is property crimes. So if it is a property crime, give them whatever they want, because you can replace your iPhone. I know it's a pain because you got your pictures in there and you got your phone numbers, and you got to pay another $1,200 for a phone or whatever. But we can replace all those things. We cannot replace ourselves. And so yes, that is an option. I've had people that have said, oh, well, I've pretended to faint, or I've, will cry, or I'll engage the person in conversation, or I've, urinated or defecated on myself because they didn't do. So it depends. You can do, that is an option. So just be thinking about, there are other options. Fighting is one of them, yelling, so yes, thank you for adding that. Question? Anything else? Yeah? All right. So again, we'll move on to just personal safety, like everyday stuff, is identifying things when you're, I like to call them visual scans. If you're driving and you park and you're going to Publix, before I pull in, Tallahassee, we have a lot of homeless folks. As to other cities, we live right off an interstate, which is kind of one of those things too. We have we do have crimes that are basically kind of interstate crimes, where they're driving down, but they need to make some extra cash, or, they're stopping in our town to sleep, but they may be here for nefarious reasons. So we have that as well. So, when, I'm back to my thought, why did I even say that? Forget, what was I even talking about? But at any rate, so when we're pulling into these parking lots, we need to just doing a visual scan. So if I identify, when we're a person that pulls in a parking lot to do something, we typically get out and we go into Publix, right? We're not hanging out in the parking lot or loitering. We come right back to our cars. So if you identify, okay, there's somebody in the parking lot, I'm going to say, don't park by that person if you see them loitering in the parking lot, because it just opens yourself up to a little bit of potential danger, if that makes sense. If somebody comes up to you, hey, no thanks, just verbalize it, kind of what we did earlier. All right, identify those things. When you're walking to your car, being prepared is having your keys out. Where are my keys? I normally have, I lost them somewhere. Oh no, here they are. It's in my pocket.
I hope you can find them.
I have too many pockets.
I rode with you.
Yeah, no, really. So if, I have a key fob, and I'll use her too. So, when I'm going to my car, I have my key fob out. I have it ready. Before I even, leave work, I get them out, and I'm like, okay, I got them. When I'm walking in, I have them ready, all right? Some people say, oh, you can, line your keys like this, and then you're ready to fight somebody. I don't love that method. I love it where you just keep your car key out, or if you're going to your house, I'm going to have my house key out, and I'm kind of ready, all right? Because if someone engages you and now you have your purse and you kind of did what you did, where you're looking for keys, and here we are in a nice, controlled, relaxed environment, and it may take you a second to find them. So imagine if you add stress. Now you're trying to do a simple task, and it ends up to be not so simple. So sometimes, too, I like to kind of have people put a little stress on you while you're trying to do a task. Even a task of opening a door is have someone behind you saying, okay, hurry up, open that door, because you do it and you practice kind of under stress of doing something. The same thing with even simple as calling 911 or using your phone is under stressful situations, people tend to get their phone, call 119 instead of 911 because they're under stress. So, it may be just is not saying practice call 911 because we would not like that. But, I've seen some people that have pre-programmed 911 as 9 and send, and just you have to kind of know that and kind of make a mental note hey, if I need 911, or just, again, running through scenarios in your head help. Just like when we're little kids, when we went to school, we did fire drills, right? one of the reasons why we do fire drills, and you guys probably do them here, maybe even, we do fire drills because we train our brain to do things in stressful emergency situations. That's why you do them. All right, when you hear the beep, 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 you get up, you got to leave your apartment or you leave here, whatever. We go in a line, we go outside to an area that they designate, and we stay there to safe. Same thing, now kids and even businesses are doing active shooter drills. Like, you hear the buzzing, okay, it comes with maybe some direction, and then we know and we learn this is what we do, this is where we need to go. So the same thing almost with personal safety is you guys need to be doing this. So you need to be going through scenarios in your head, whether it be home. Hey, if I wake up and there's someone standing at the foot of my bed, what do I do? Do I have a phone available? Do I fight? Do I have a window? Do I have a door? Do I lock myself in the bathroom? Do I have a roommate I call out to? I don't know these answers because my house is different from your house and your house. So some of the things that you need to practice or do your own drill is important. And I have a question.
I don't have a question, but off of Amazon, I bought an emergency alert system for me and my daughter-in-law and daughter, and you pull the top off if I remember to carry it with me, and it really does shriek. So I have told my girls to make sure to keep that with them in their purse and to use that, because one of the other things that I've heard is like a van that parks next to you with the door open where they try to abduct women. So.
Exactly, and thank you for pointing that, because that gives me a jumping point off. When we talk about, like, you can buy safety things, and oftentimes people will ask me about pepper spray, people will ask me about carrying firearms, people will ask me about, knife defense or whatever the case may be. So I'll touch on, she talked about it's an alarm, like something you put in your purse, or maybe you wear it around your neck, or whatever the case may be. And those can be pros and cons of some of those things. Yes, it can potentially help you in an attack situation. You said one of the things that I would say is getting to it, because a lot of the times we'll put it in our purse, and then you saw it took her a few seconds just to find her keys, which are probably the last thing she used. Now she's trying to find her alarm. But if I deal with a lot of people that may exercise outside too, and they have questions, and I'll say, you know what, I sometimes would prefer, I'm kind of halfway on those alarm systems, because when we go out to a parking lot and we hear, because sometimes people will say, well, I have this red panic button right here, so if something happens, I'm pushing this panic button, similar to an alarm that's just like beep, beep, beep. And when we hear an alarm, what do? When we hear an alarm in a parking lot of a car, do you think, oh my gosh, there's a car being burglarized, we're not safe? We don't do that.
I think they're basically trying to find where their car is.
Yeah, they're trying to find where the car is,
Yeah.
or they've pushed the wrong button, or their kid has their keys, and 99% of the time, well, I don't want to give that stat, but a high percentage of those alarms are false, and we tend to not even turn around and look at that. So sometimes alarms like that, we train ourselves to ignore them because we know most of the time they're false. So I recommend, if you do have an encounter, is not to waste time trying to find a noise-making device, and to use your own verbals, because you can actually scream and holler and yell probably just as loud as a noise-making, and you're going to cause more of a distraction of if you heard a loud beep, 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 opposed to a help, call police, I need, what do you probably want to call somebody is probably the human voice actually calling that you need help. So not to knock those products, but this, the same thing with pepper spray. People say, well, I carry pepper spray, so I feel really good about that. But I'm like, okay, when was the last time you used that? How old is it? Look at it now, and it doesn't have like a piece of gum stuck in it, or so much lint that, that you can't even push the button, or how far does it spray? Because most of the time we don't read the directions, and some of those are 10 feet, some of them spray 15 feet, some of them spray 20 feet. So if your attacker is 25 feet away and you're like, psh, and it doesn't even reach him. So you need to know its limitations, its capabilities. Some of them, you need to know wind direction because, trust me, I've used pepper spray in my career, and coworkers of mine have also used it. And you know who gets it the most?
We do.
We do, not
Yeah.
the bad guy.
Yeah.
Because wind direction too, you spray it and it comes back at you because the wind is hefty. So those are just some of the things you kind of need to know about pepper spray.
One thing I learned years ago was always lock my car whenever I leave it in a public place, no matter where. I find that I even do it in the parking lot here at Westminster Oaks. And so, I automatically lock it, and I have an opener right there on the fob now, on this one. And it helps. I can go up to the car and unlock it when I get there. But I carry my key always, and I learned that I worked with 2 different law enforcement agencies in my lifetime, not as, an officer, but I've listened to what I've been told. So, this is the safest, one of the safest measures, and I also look where I'm parking. I look who's around me. And even though this is Tallahassee and your car gets hotter than blue blazes in the middle of the summer, I still lock the car in the middle of the summer, not assuming that people won't get in somebody else's car and hide there in the heat until they get back.
100%. I can't say that enough of locking. I mean, simple stuff. Lock your doors. I can say that a million times. And still, one of our more than half of our burglaries in Tallahassee are unlocked cars and doors. Like, I could go out to this parking lot right now and try 20 cars, and I'll probably find 10 unlocked. And within those 10 unlocked car doors, I'll find 2 guns. Every day, Tallahassee Police Department, we do a lot of data-driven policing, where we look at the crime trends. Every week we meet and we pull all the crime stats from around each area, and we look to see where the burglaries are, what they're stealing, and so there'll be 12 burglaries within the city last week, and then 8 of those were from unlocked doors, and then there were 2 firearms stolen from those 2, and that's literally every week. Those are some of our stats. I mean, obviously, sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's 20 burglaries or 25. Sometimes it's 10. We always are going to have burglaries, but it's just locking those doors, and it's almost like a pleading case. Like, we deal with neighborhoods, we deal with civic groups, we deal with all kinds of people, and that's always like our huge thing. We were in a parade for springtime, and our theme was lock before you leave, is lock those doors. So it's huge, and thank you for doing that. But again, it's just another little reminder, because they'll open them, look to see. Typically, it's center console and the front glove box, thank you, is what the things are looking at. They may look under the seat, because those are the 3 places people tend to keep firearms in their car, or their wallets or things like that. So again, we call it target hardening. We don't want you to be a victim, so we want you to harden your target, which is you, or your belongings and your home. So Charles goes out and he does security surveys for homes. So we can go out to your business or your residence, whether it be a single family, an apartment, and he'll look at the doors, locks, windows, and give you recommendations on how to improve the safety of your home, whether it be additional lighting or cutting the shrubs, or we have a few different recommendations for depending on the circumstance. But again, that's something you can take advantage, and we offer that for free.
The main thing is it's make it harder for the bad guy. You got locks on your cars, utilize them. You have locks, and it's just make it harder for them. Because bad guys just want to get it easy as possible with not attention. They don't want to have attention, whatever, so they can find another victim. So it just make it harder for the bad guys.
So thank you for bringing that up, because whenever you guys have questions or concerns or comments, sometimes it may spark a little bit of something. So we talk about personal safety and self-defense or this or that. We talked about keys can be, a walker, a great tool. Sometimes people say, because when I teach my self-defense class, I got a lot of people that call me and say, well, I'm not as mobile as I used to be. I had a lady in my class, and she was 82. I had a class last month, and there was a lady, and she was 77. We're not running marathons at these age, but you are open to being a victim. And, age, like, unfortunately, I worked in special victims unit, and I had children who were victims. I have people that, have lived very long lives, and are bad guys. Again, sometimes they may target people because of age. So we try to do our best with minimizing that, is doing some of the things that we've already talked about. And use what you have as a resource too. Don't be scared to ask questions, even if I know we're in an open room and we're in a big forum, and you may not want to ask a question because you're shy or whatnot. I'm going to leave my business card up here. You are welcome to call me, email me, say, hey, Maria, what do you think about this scenario or situation, or whatever. Unfortunately, some of our older community, they're victims of cons and frauds. I mean, I'm not a super expert on that, just kind of what I've experienced, but it always holds true. If something is too good to be true, it is. You have to be so careful with online things that pop up if you're on some sort of social media, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, or whatever the case. Even telephone calls of hey, they're trying to get your personal information. If you don't call somebody, if you don't call your bank and Google or have the phone number from your bank, if you don't call your bank and your bank calls you, you never should be giving any kind of personal information. And I know sometimes you may have heard this, but the more times you hear things, probably it gets ingrained in your head. And I don't care if that's your bank, your insurance on your car, where someone calls you and say, hey, I'm Allstate, and we're just confirming your account number, and I think that your credit card's expired, and we need to just get that. I'm just going to need the 3-digit PIN. I'm going to need your social, what's your mother's maiden name, and these are all the things obviously they need so they can go online and buy whatever they want and have a shopping spree. So don't ever give any personal information. If you're unsure, say, I will call you back at your, you look up that Allstate number, that 800 number, and then you call them back just to confirm any of this. So, this is pretty simple, generic-y stuff, but just, you always want to think in your back of mind, maybe this isn't right. Then you should follow that instinct, right? We kind of almost started this with instinct when it came to personal safety, but it holds true for even cons and frauds. And we live in a great world where there are more good people than bad people. So I always like to say that, because there's more people in this world that are going to help you and make you be successful and live your whole life. But there is that percentage of this world that are bad people, that are looking to do harm to you, looking to, steal from you, looking to do, just potentially do physical harm to you. So we just have to kind of follow those instincts. And if you're not sure, ask. You guys have great staff here, clearly, because we're here trying to just impart a little bit of knowledge so we're all live a happy life. So ask whether it be a friend that you're comfortable with, a staff member, or heck, you're going to have my email and my phone to refer here, and you're welcome to call me too. All right, I had a question.
One thing I've learned to do, as you said, I'm not as mobile as I used to be, but when I go to the grocery store, the drugstore, something like that, I park up close. If I can't, I go right on, because it's not that important to me to be way out in a lot. And I had an experience at Publix over there in the village one day, and thank goodness the boys who take the carts up, he called over to me. He said, Aunt Harriet, come over here. I haven't seen you in a long time. Well, he had already buzzed his manager because he saw something there. But I do that. I just don't park anywhere.
And I like that, because you've identified, maybe some things that you have maybe some limitations. So you've recognized that, and I think recognizing some things and making that effort. Well, I maybe didn't need that right now. I can wait till tomorrow, where the opportunity, it didn't expose yourself. So I like that. A lot of times we don't do that though in everyday life, because people are so busy and this and that. So trusting your instincts and changing your patterns of behavior sometimes too are perfect. So thank you for sharing that. And hopefully, someone else has that same situation. And again, we have that good person in the world that's going to help, is whether it be the kid that's picking up the carts, or even using our verbals of saying, you know, hey, get back if you did park, or calling to somebody and saying, hey, can you help me and come over here? Because I guarantee you're, again, your good people outweigh your bad people. So, yeah.
When I go to bed at night, I have my cell phone on the table right next to my bed. Also, my pendant. We all have a safety pendant that if we push, it notifies security we need help. And the other thing, the only problem I ever had is one of the cats walking across it and pushing it. So I immediately had to call security and say, "Don't worry, it's okay." But the other thing is that I have an Apple Watch, and if I fall, it will tell me, it seems like you have fallen. Do here, push an emergency button if you need help. And so I can do that, but it only tells me that I haven't fallen with it. I'm digging in the garden, and it tells me, it seems like you may have fallen. Do you need help? And I can tell it, no, it's okay. But, just be aware of some of the resources that you have around you. And I also have an Alexa, and I have thought about seeing if it will send out a very noisy alarm in the middle of the night if I wake up and find somebody standing at the end of the bed. I haven't tried it yet because I don't want to scare the heck out of my neighbors. But I'm going to check out some of those options, and I can tell it to call 911. I can tell it to turn on lights. There are a lot of things you can do with that Echo Dot in your bedroom.
And I like too, because there's so much technology out there. Even I'm very bad. Oh, now I'm back. I'm not super tech savvy personally, but some of my coworkers and friends are very good at some of that things. I have a guy that he's like, living room lights. He says stuff, and stuff turns on magically in his house, lights and drapes and cameras and TVs and all kinds of stuff, which is fantastic. So, get with her, because she seems to be a little more knowledgeable. Yeah, which is a great
That's
tool.
Good. That's great.
Yeah.
You can, with the Alexa, and I've talked to a lot of y'all about it before, if you have Alexa, you can attach it to your phone. So if you do fall, you can have it call security. If you think that there's an intruder or something, you can program it to call 911. So all you have to say is, Alexa, call 911. So it calls it immediately. Or for something less emergency, you can have it call security or your family or anything like that. So if you have that in your house, you don't necessarily have to have your phone right there beside you, as long as you have one of those devices within the room that you are.
And when you are calling 911, I always like to say our CDA, which is our Consolidated Dispatch Agency, which fields all the calls for law enforcement, fire, and EMS. So it's a central dispatch agency. So I always like to say they do have a Q&A. So if it's not like a super emergency where you've fallen and you're limited on the things that you can say, maybe because you're injured or whatnot, they will go through a whole Q&A. And it may seem tedious, but bear with them, because it's the things they have to do. But location is huge. So if it is something where you've fallen, where you're injured, or such a state where maybe someone is chasing you, location is the first thing you want to be giving. Not help, call police. Ideally, I'm at Westminster Oaks, or your room number, or I'm at Publix on Mahan. I mean, I know sometimes you don't know addresses, but if you can give locations, or even just some kind of marker or something that helps us, I'm at Target on the Parkway, or even if you don't know physical addresses or locations, that ideally first, because it's nothing worse than being a patrol officer being dispatched to something where it's like, all they said was Mahan Drive, and I'm like, well, that doesn't help, because Mahan's a pretty big stretch and there's lots of business and things. So for us to try to help you, yes, we do have tracking capabilities sometimes with cell phones, but it's not like TV where
Limited.
Yeah, we push one magic button and within seconds we have your location. We actually have to work with different companies to try to get location.
To pinpoint where you at.
Yeah, so location, just to that. So any other questions? These are some great questions, which spurts us into different topics. But overall, I did want to talk about like proper, if you do get in that situation where you have to like defend yourself, we talked about locations, groin, eyes, throat, wherever you can get a hold of. Like, heck, I don't care if you grab someone's hair, you're going to be using keys, nails, you can use, heck, I can use this microphone as a great tool. I mean, not only can you strike someone like this, I always love, it's called a hammer fist. So everyone just take your hand out, put it like a stop sign right in your chair. Roll your fingers down, and then just put your thumb just nice and comfortably in a nice tight fist right here, all right? And then this is a nice striking pad. So if I'm here or here, people don't realize this is called a hammer fist. So it's almost like when you're whacking that whack-a-mole game, or a judge with a gavel, guilty, whatever, so this is a great striking area, or just your regular fist is a great striking area. So if we're having, if you are push comes to shove and someone where you need to actually defend yourself, a great fist. So if Charles is my bad guy, and two, when we're striking, it's not just this, right? I don't have a lot of power, right? Because I'm just using my arm, which is zero power. So especially as folks that maybe aren't as bigger as maybe, Charles is kind of a big guy, is I need to use my hips and everything else. So I am transferring my weight this way. So I'm actually using my hips to strike. And I want to strike all the way through, as if I'm, want to come out the back of his head or whatever I'm striking, or through his groin, or whatever the case may be. All right? So imagine this, is I'm not going to really hit you, Charles. So boom, my striking area, I'm going, because I need to get away from him. He's my bad guy, and I'm trying to get away. So again, is that strike right to whatever area, all right? Or two, when I talk about a hammer fist, same thing. I'm kind of twisting, using my hips and striking. So if Charles didn't have that pad and he was my bad guy, I'm not going to hit you, Charles, is when we talk about this great striking area, right, is just no, no, no. And the more you come back, the more power you're going to have here, all right? And your bad guy, I mean, if Charles grabbed me by my arm, say, one of these, push, pull, I didn't have his mic, I immediately would be, no, 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 because you can't. On mine, I would personally rather do this, because you can. Or I also like, here is, this actually, you do a little karate chop right here to your own, on mine. I don't love that, because if this is this close and you're trying to, on the beginning of abduction, I'm hitting you. I don't want to, but this is me. And what you do is different. And what she's going to do, and what she's going to do. We're all going to react differently. Like, she's going to just lay down, and hopefully, they're, not going to pick her up and say, you're coming with me, because it's too much of a trouble, right? So if you have somebody that's going to attack, fall down, yell.
They'll probably use two hands and, try to get you quickly into that van. So I'll grab, Hoyana.
Yep.
I grab you like this.
But I'm coming, and I'm going to be hitting him in the groin. Yeah, you see. And he kind of did me like a little bit of ragdoll, right? Because he's a big guy. But, yeah. And two, I also like to say is, you can bide time, too, because people say, well, what if I have a gun to my head? I'm not going to teach you, gun defense here and whatever. So there are so many different scenarios. You have to know your limitations, your capabilities. So it may be biding time until there's an opportunity for then maybe you to hit or strike them. You may use your verbals and just plead with the person. There have been cases, too, where they've talked to their attacker and, talked about family, religion, beliefs, spiritual, whatever the case may be. So do what you need to do to just survive. I mean, obviously going home at the end of the night and being there for your family and friends is number one. Making your own decision, whatever the safety thing is. But, it all goes back to that 90% is prevention. So This stuff, hopefully you'll never have to see and do, you know, if you do the 90% of it, right? So, any other questions? I know we're, yeah. Doesn't have to be real quick. We got time.
So let's say that the first thing you try, you give them a good punch, and all it does, it makes them angry. What's the next thing you do?
Well, again, it's like one of those things I can't say, well, if you do this and this and this, you know, if it makes, then maybe you may change your option. Because I have had survivors of different attacks throughout my career. You know, we obviously interview our survivors, and we also interview bad guys when we catch them. So you may have to change your tactic or strategy. That's why in self-defense, they teach you multiple things. We're going to teach you different strikes, different kicks, different punches, different things, because you just want to have lots of viable options. And so if you start off with defending yourself physically, and that is not working, then potentially you may change your approach to more verbals. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm going to do what you need me to do, whatever you want, take my money, you know, I have a family to go home to, I have grandchildren, you know, then that may be your strategy. So,
while you doing that, I may be somebody over here that, hey, what's going on over here? That is grabbing my attention to over here to see what's going on with you.
So verbals are very important. If defending yourself physically is your option of self-defense, verbals are important. But then again, if that's not working, you can switch your approach. So that's why we tell lots of different things of, like, you know, I had a survivor where it was an apartment complex, and her attacker came through a sliding glass door and met her face to face in like the hallway of her apartment, and she had no clue there was someone in her apartment. He grabbed her, pushed her into the bedroom. She initially fought him tooth or nail, but he overpowered her, and she was in a duplex, so she thought too that someone was going to be home, because it was on a weekend, and it was pretty early in the morning. And she yelled, but he also then put like a pillow over her face where she couldn't yell anymore, and she also too had difficulty breathing. So she then was like, I'm going to die because he's basically trying to smother me. So she then switched her compliance and became a compliant, where she shifted her gears, and she actually, this is a crazy story, and this happened probably about 10 years ago, but she was able to survive that attack. Unfortunately, she was victimized, but she ended up giving very good description of her attacker, and we actually caught him a few blocks away within an hour of her calling, but he held her captive for, it was probably almost 7 hours in her own apartment. But, you know, I say this not as a scare technique, but she started off fighting, and then she also thought, okay, maybe someone's going to hear, so someone would eventually call 911, but even when I interviewed like neighbors, they said, well, I thought I heard somebody yelling, but I didn't think anything of it. So, you know, that's just, too, if you hear something and you're not sure about it, call, because we don't mind coming out to check something out of like, hey, someone called, they heard a little commotion, just checking on your welfare, and it gets us out there too. So you learn a lot of lessons from, unfortunately, bad things that happen. You know, that guy's in prison, and he will be there for many, many, many years. But it was obviously a very traumatic, horrible thing. So I tell that story because sometimes I like to bring it home. We do have bad things that happen, even right here in Tallahassee. So it is very important to kind of be on your P's and Q's, always paying attention, you know, relying on others, traveling in groups if you can, because again, our bad guys pick, and they're not going to pick somebody when there's 4 people. They're looking for that lone person a lot of the time. So, you know, just making the best decisions for yourself and your safety. Any other? Yep.
I get approached regularly in parking lots by people that have run out of gas money and have not eaten in 3 days and that sort of thing. Is there a resource number that I could give that person to help them out, because I know my $5 is gonna keep them out of somebody else's face for an hour or so, but it's not gonna keep them out, it's not gonna help the person long-term.
And that's a good question. I scratched a little bit that we do have a large homeless population. Again, one, we are off an interstate. Two, Tallahassee has a lot of resources for, we have a homeless shelter here. We do have a lot of social service agencies. I don't know them offhand, but I could gladly get you and email them, and then you guys can have them. My one thing with those, I apologize, I thought I put that on mute. My one thing with those is, sometimes, and I'm not saying all of them, they're more than what they appear. Is the gas station thing is a con that a lot of them use, and it's like, oh, my kid is sick, and we even have them too going through neighborhoods of like, my child has whatever and they need this medicine, and I just need $33 more to buy this medicine, and they're not buying medicine. The same thing with the gas, like. Yes, even with the food, we have some of them will actually park a car, that they own a car, and they're out there and they're panhandling. And most of the time, we have a lot that have mental health issues or substance abuse problems. So they will take the money, and you'll even see, you'll buy them a full meal, give it to them, and I've seen them go and throw it in the trash and continue to go out. But I'm not saying all of them, but it is a scam essentially. Where they're giving a farce. Because I had one of my friends, and as a student, I used to oftentimes give money, $1 here, $1 there. I would go buy food, and unfortunately, sometimes when you're a police officer, because you'll see the flip side of it. But I'm not saying all of them. So just be careful because you are opening yourself up to when you make that face-to-face encounter and you're opening your wallet and you're giving money. I'm not saying all these folks are bad, but we have had many incidents where they'll grab a wallet or they'll take advantage of that person. So I always say donate to these social service agencies that are actually offering help rather than the individual themselves, because you sort of cut out some of because you don't know if it's a true statement or a false statement. That makes sense. There is a 211 number locally that does a lot of resources. So there's 211, but there are a lot of social service agencies, like we have the Kearney Center, but the Kearney Center is set up too, where not only do they house folks, they also have counseling that come in. They literally have the DMV that comes in. They have, the job place. So that place was built because they didn't want the people having to go out to all these different places. They kind of wanted it a one-stop shop. So, that is a good resource. In my experience, though, a lot of our folks don't want to go there for various reasons. But there's Hope Community, which is right next door to them. There's a lot of churches that also help some local organizations, I think Catholic Charities, and there's a few of them. So depending what resource, there's some that will buy bus tickets. There's some that will pay for rent. There's some that will give you gas money if it is a true need and they're trying to get somewhere where they have, maybe a family member in another state that is ready to take them, assist them with the housing needs, and they will pay for that. So it is there. It's just the folks actually, because they have to do certain things to, they're just not handing out money. So the 211, or maybe, you can even get with me if it's a specific person, because we will dig a little bit more to say, okay, what's your true need? What, you have to work for it a little bit. You just can't give. So if that makes sense. But we do get that often. And yeah.
I had my window down and I stopped at a light and he engaged me in conversation. And I stupidly talked back to him because I'm that person. But he told me that he had ran out of gas and was stuck in the parking lot, and he had 4 puppies in his car. And I said, you have 4 puppies. He's like, yeah, do you like dogs? I'm like, yeah, I like dogs. I was like, where are the puppies right now? He's like, oh, they're in my truck. I was like, well, it's like 90 degrees out. That's actually animal abuse. I can call somebody for you. He's like, oh, did I say they were in my truck? I meant they were and I'm like, okay, yeah.
I had a lady too where she said, I need gas money. And I literally walked to her, the car, and I was like, your car's on, almost full. And, and I'm not saying everybody, because there are people definitely in need, but more often than not, Charles can vouch it's, it is, when I say scam, I mean, they're in need. They're not like probably millionaires out there, but, and most of it too, it's, substance abuse issues is mostly what it ends up getting used for.
I have a different type of question. Has there been any noticeable increase in like group crime since the bad guys are coming across from the border?
I haven't seen any true increase of, from that. When we see, again, we're off an interstate, so we do get a lot of, we call them almost like gypsy crimes, or because they're traveling crews, and that can be burglary traveling rings, theft traveling rings, where we'll arrest these people, and literally they come off the interstate and they'll hit like the CVS and they steal like all like the things that make your teeth white, which it's like really expensive. So they'll clear the shelves and they'll go to like 3 CVS's, and then they're on the interstate. And literally we put out like we call a bolo to other agencies, because we're like, okay, this is a traveling ring, and they've caught them like the next interstate stop. So we'll get that, or burglar rings where they literally get off the interstate, they'll Google the gyms that are near there, and they will smash and grab purses and things from gyms, and then they'll use the credit card information, but they're literally on the interstate in another state within like an hour with that credit card information, using it in like the next town over. So we see a lot of that, because again, if people don't realize, living off of a main thoroughfare like I-10 brings in a lot of transient crime. We haven't seen much as far as immigrant or anything like that. Yes.
I just happened to think of another incident. I have a friend who was shopping in Publix. She had her purse open on her cart in that upper area, and somebody reached in and just took her wallet. And fortunately, Publix happened to have their surveillance camera identified the person. But if you're shopping, do not leave your purse open in your cart. Have it closed and have it on your arm.
Okay. And that's another thing that happens often. And we've had traveling crews even do that, or do they target Publix, because we have the one right here off the interstate. So a lot of people don't realize that. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But oftentimes, if you're going to have your purse, I even say too, they have the little, the straps, the child straps, where you can strap it. I mean, I would prefer it to be on your shoulder or on your person, but if you're going to leave it, at minimum, zip it up and then do that. And then stay with your cart. Don't like put your cart here and then go and pick out your apples and all this other stuff, and then you come back to your cart and your purse is gone. And Publix does have pretty good camera systems. They're pretty good depending on the thing. But then again, even since COVID, the bad guys are still wearing masks. And so sometimes too, we have a picture of them, but to be able to identify them sometimes can be pretty difficult if they're not a spree or someone that we're known to law enforcement, and sometimes they're even hard to identify with that.
One other thing I was thinking about, Gwen's example in the Publix parking lot. Sometimes if you've got a bunch of stuff, get the carrier, one of the Publix young people to take the cart out for you, with you, and then you've got company. You're not by yourself, so that can be a safety factor as well.
100%. Use your resources. The same thing, even like your police department. If you're not sure about something and it is your personal safety is in question, I 100% would prefer you to call the police and have us come out there and check it out, or security on site come check it out, and it be nothing than it actually be something, because now we really have to deal with something, right? So that's all kind of a premise to like a neighborhood watch, is you identify potential things that don't look right, because you guys are the ones that live in the community, and know the things that are out of place. If Charles and I, this is the first time Charles has been here, so he doesn't know what's out of the ordinary, because it's the first time he's been in here. I've been here a handful of times, so I don't know what's out of place or not out of place, but you guys live here. You come and go every day. The same thing with your own neighborhoods, and when we teach neighborhood watches, it's like, I know my neighbors. I've lived next to them for 20 years, so I know what cars they have. I know their kids who come to visit, and even I kind of know what make and model their cars are at. So, and I know, one is retired, and I know the one, she's actually been working home the last 2 years, so I see her car. And so I know these patterns, and the same thing with you guys. So if you see a pattern that's changed, or if you see someone walking outside with a TV in their hand and it's not your neighbor, then, you should be calling us. So just those things, kind of simple stuff, but again, just little reminders. So we'll finish up with the last few questions. I have one over here.
But do you know we don't live in the city?
I do know that, but we're so dedicated, I'm coming anyway.
Okay, because I had a problem and I called the city and they said they wouldn't handle it and to call the county.
Yeah, you guys actually technically are in the county, so the Tallahassee Police Department will not respond here, but the Leon County Sheriff's Office would. And I am certain that if you have an issue and you call the police, or you're calling the Consolidated Dispatch Agency, and then they farm it out to, they look at their address and they're like, okay, this is in the county, so they'll dispatch a deputy. But I will always be unfortunately, we do have jurisdictional boundaries. So you won't see the guys and gals in blue come out here. You'll see the guys and gals in green, which also enforce the law and assist. But I can be a phone reference, or I really love this place, and I used to have a great aunt that stayed here, so I said, yeah, I'm going to come out and do a personal safety. So, anybody really, I think we have personal investments. I don't care where you live, I'm still going to try to help you in whatever need that you have. But good point. So you won't see blue, you'll see green.
I learned this in a class similar to this, and they said for little old ladies like myself and some here, if you're walking in a parking lot, don't slump over and act like you're very vulnerable. Stay as erect as you can. If you with a cane, I stand up. When I get out of my car, I stand up as straight as I can and act like I'm in control.
And that's one of the things I actually talk about, my personal safety, or I talked about it a little bit, but not as good as you just explained it right there, is you're going to look that person in the eye. You're going to look tough, and even if someone makes you a little bit intimidated, you feel intimidated a little bit, you can still throw out their confidence by walking tall. If she's the person that makes it, I'm still going to walk tall, look her in the eye, continue where I'm going. And, that in itself, where, again, when we talk about not looking at them, if they don't see me, I don't see them, they're scaring me, kind of a deal. So, yes, thank you for pointing that out. So if you look the part, that person doesn't know inside, your heart's beating, you're like, oh, I'm really nervous. No, you're portraying confidence. And that's one of the things where target hardening that you're doing. So kudos to you. Yeah. Bad guys don't like when you look at them, because now they're like, well, crap, now they can identify me. They can give a better description of me. They saw what kind of car I came in, or whatever the case. So again, that does play a factor, because we interview our bad guys once we arrest them, and we ask things, why'd you pick this person? Did you know them? This or that. And we collect this, intel to educate our community of hey, if you do this, you're less likely to be a victim. It's not a guarantee that you'll never be a victim of something, but it's that target hardening to make yourself less. Unfortunately, it's probably going to be somebody else, but, because our bad guys, that's their goal is, typically it's financial gain. So, we just need to do that. Any other last questions? Yes? Exercise here.
Well, as far as pickpocketing, I know a lot of men, they carry their wallets in their back pocket, and they make themselves more a target for a pickpocket. I mean, I've always, as long as I've carried a wallet, I always carry it in my front left pocket. That way I know where it is at all times, and you're not so much of a, if a pickpocket comes up to you with a knife, I mean, they could slit your, they could slit your back pocket and get away without you even knowing.
100%. And again, it's just identifying the things that, is it smart to keep it in the back pocket? The same thing with cell phones, too. We see that where people put them in their back pockets, which cell phones now, I mean, they used to be a couple $100. Now they're literally like $1,400 to get a new phone. Yeah. And everybody, you almost have to have one because you need them a lot for various things. Yes. We're seeing more, I've seen too, where cell phone thefts have been more prevalent than pickpocketers. We don't get a ton of pickpocketing cases.
Not anymore.
Even at large scale events like football games. But we've had, we were working a lot of cell phone thefts from clubs where they're busy areas where you're having a lot of people, and we were seeing that because
believe it or not, most people keep their cars in their cell phone now.
Yeah. But again, something to think about too, and thanks for bringing that up, because again, it just gets our wheels spinning, and something we're thinking about of whether you're a man or a woman, and you're like, yeah, I probably need to not, have it so exposed and maybe zip up my purse, or, heck, you can even now it's totally acceptable to, for a man to have, man purse or something, but a little bag. I mean,
We're still up for debate.
Well, Charles is like, I'll never wear a man purse. But honestly, too, we have I have a lot of guy friends that will carry a little bag to have their wallet in there, keep their phone, because, you get tied down with so much stuff. So, again, another option if that's something for you. Yep, locking your phones. Yes, 100%.
Yep.
All right, we'll wrap it up with a
last question.
With a goofy question, probably, but since we're talking about phones, I have an iPhone and it has an emergency thing there to hit emergency. However, my phone number is a New York State area code. So if I push that emergency, would I get Tallahassee or would I get Syracuse, New York?
It's the closest.
Okay. So it wouldn't go by my phone number?
No, it goes by your location. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
But good question, right? So, all right. Well, we are going to wrap it up. Again, I always thank for coming out, because anytime we can talk about personal safety to prevent something from happening, that's one thing. I joke and say it's one less report we have to take, but truly we do it because we care about the people, and I would prefer you guys to live your whole lives without having to, gouge someone's eye out or, punch them in the groin or whatever. But, that at least you are aware that you can do that as long as you're justified, that you have that option, and everybody has that ability to defend themselves. I don't care if it's someone as tall as Charles or bigger and stronger. You can still do something about it. You can also be good witnesses and provide police information. Especially don't worry about that property stuff. Give it to them. You are number one, because you want to go home every day to your your family and your friends.
And remember, play the what if game.
Yep.
That's a fun game to play. What if? What if somebody here? What would I do?
Yep. Good scenarios. So thank you. I appreciate always the invite to come out here.
Thank y'all guys for having us out.
Yeah. And I have yay. I do have just some information, just some safety information here. I teach that women's self-defense class. So sorry guys, it's a women-only class. But here are some dates. Everybody is capable of going, because even if we do some of the techniques, and I'll just have the ladies sit in a chair if you can't do it, we can do different things. So we modify a lot of these techniques. So if you are breathing, you can go to it. And so I have the different class dates here. And also my information is written on here, my phone number, as well as my email. And then I have a few business cards I will also leave up here. So, if you had that question that you didn't want to ask in front of all your friends here, you're welcome to call me or email me. I also have some Tallahassee Police Department they're chip clips that you can also put in your refrigerator, which is great because, nice to hang stuff. So I'm going to leave these up here, and you guys can come get them for listening to me and Charles for like an hour. It's your reward. Safety tips and